Hello and welcome to another edition of the Steelers Depot live stream. I am Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Joining me as always is the one, the only Dave Bryan. As Dave, we're about 3 weeks away from the 2026 NFL Draft, of course, held in Pittsburgh. So I know the city is getting prepared. Are you getting prepared for the draft, Dave?
Absolutely. It's almost April. So, trying to refine some of my stuff. Really looking forward to more of the quotes from Mike McCarthy and potentially Omar Khan come out this week from the owners meeting there. And we'll see what the final few batches of pre-draft visitors look like there. It was interesting. McCarthy talking earlier on the Pat McAfee show today about he had originally had planned to go to, I think he said 6 pro days, and I guess other things got in the way there. I imagine the Bob Harlan funeral or death and him speaking at that. What they call that circle of life?
I believe they call it a celebration of life.
Yeah, celebration of life. I imagine that's one thing that probably got in the way there. Who knows what else? But he was planning on going to 6, and he went to 1. And it sounds like 1 might be all he goes to, but we'll see what happens at Indiana in a couple of days from now. But with the owners' meetings going on, be interesting to see if that gets in the way there. And look, it's Monday night. We got Bucks and Pucks on the TVs tonight. So yeah, it's a good time to be alive. Interested to see a lot and answer some of the questions we get tonight.
All the Pittsburgh sports converging in just this place, and only this place, Steelers Depot live stream. So we're here till 8 p.m. Eastern time answering as many of your Steelers questions as possible. If you guys could like this stream, subscribe to the channel, of course, check out the site on screen, SteelersDepot.com. I'm sure most of you already do. We appreciate that. If you want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered by David and myself, you can send us a super chat and you will move to the front of the line. No obligations, but we appreciate all the super chats very much. So, Dave, let's dive on in. We'll start off with our friend Mike Adesso, who says draft is now 24 days away, and I've never been this unsure of what round 1 pick will be. Not only the player, but position. Have Yin started to lock in yet? What 5 guys would you put Alex's house on? So, Dave, are you locked in terms of who this team's taking?
Once you get all the pre-draft, here's the thing, and Alex and I have talked about this several times on the podcast, and obviously since Mike Tomlin is no longer here, it'd be interesting to track how things maybe go different, especially in this first year with Mike McCarthy as a head coach. And we've already seen with the pro days being different, and even though he says he wanted to go to 6, he's only been to 1, and you can only mark him down for 1. Technically, I mean, I don't know what you think about the one in their own backyard at the University of Pittsburgh pro day and all like that. But that's all we have to go on there. And I think we both agree that we're going to be putting a lot of stock into the pre-draft visitor list here, and hopefully we'll get that thing filled out all the way to 30 here in the next couple of weeks overall. But I think in my head for quite a while, especially going into the pre-draft process and even before free agency got underway, when it seemed very likely that Isaac Seumalo would be allowed to walk, and then regardless of if the team went out and did something at wide receiver, which they ultimately did in trading for Michael Pittman Jr., you had to think that wide receivers was going to be high on not only our list but several people's list. So right now, and like I said, dating back several weeks, a lot of my focus and my eyes on myself have been really on 3 positions, I think, with 2 really ahead of the other one, and that would be guard, wide receiver, and then potentially a safety. And especially if the Steelers are to stay put at 21 overall in the first round, it feels like that makes the most sense there. So it's going to be kind of hard to move me at this point. And look, I still think, regardless of what other people might think about the inside linebacker room at this point, and yeah, I understand they re-signed Cole Holcomb and Malik Harrison's still there, and yes, Peyton Wilson coming coming off of his second season. You would expect him to improve. But Patrick Queen is in the final year of his contract right now. There's no signs, at least at this point, that they're going to extend him. And yeah, they drafted Carson Bruner last year, but I mean, what really is he? So I think some slight attention, at least, or plausibility, maybe depending on how the board breaks, could potentially be put in the inside linebacker position. But I've felt for a while now guard or wide receiver in the first round. Now, how the board breaks could obviously send them away from both of those positions, but that's where I've been at, and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, in terms of the three positions I see as most likely, I'm with you: receiver, guard, and safety. We'll talk about it more on the podcast, and we'll talk about it again right before the draft, but I just checked my notes from maybe 2 weeks ago. We gave our percentages for what was most likely in the first round. Dave, you were at 50% guard, 45% receiver, 5% safety. Are you still at those numbers, or have they shifted at all?
What were the numbers again?
Guard 50%, receiver 45%, and safety 5%.
Yeah, I'm still, maybe I'll raise safety just a little bit from that, maybe up to 10% or so, but not too terribly far off of that.
I think I'm still similar. I was receiver 60%, safety 25%, guard 10%, other 5%. I'll probably bump safety down to 20 and guard up to 15, but I'm still going to put receiver on the most likely position, even though I think this is a good class, not a great class. It has more depth than it has true first round, slam dunk, top end talent. In terms of names, if you had to give me just a quick list of 3 names, we're not locking this in today, and I'm with you. I think the pre-draft visitor list that should start filling up once everyone breaks for the owners meeting. So really starting probably Wednesday, Thursday, probably Thursday, Friday, because that's after the Indiana Pro Day. You're going to have a better sense of who are the first round candidates. But if you had to give 3 names right now, who would you guess?
Probably not hard to guess who 2 of them are, right? Omar Cooper Jr. Would be on the list. Vega out of Penn State would be on the list. From there, I imagine maybe Casey Concepcion, if I can get myself to a place where I can consider him worthy of a first round pick. I think if you're building a list out, especially after Mike McCarthy talks today about versatility in the wide receiver position, be able to move around. And then look, I think if you're building out a safety list, the top 2, I think in this class are obviously Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon, and then a guy that you had, even though I'd be kind of weird to see a kid out of Toledo be the first round draft pick overall. But I mean, I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren is a very talented kid and obviously one of the top safeties in the class. So I gave you 4 there, I guess, and you asked for two or 3, but Vega and Omar Cooper Jr. have been on my list of potential first-round candidates for quite a while now.
If I offer 1 at each position, I put on the podium receiver for now, and this can and likely will change, but Denzel Boston from Washington, he's the only first-round receiver who has a scheduled visit with a team that we know of. I assume more are going to come, and probably in bunches over the next 2 weeks or so, but until those names are officially linked to Pittsburgh, I'll just put Boston there for now. And then for guard, I'll say Ioane, as you said, the kid out of Penn State. And then at safety, I put McNeil Warren in my mock, and it still certainly could be him, but I'll go Dylan Thieneman as the third name right now. All right, next question comes from John Pennington. I just want to thank everyone who's here that's in the chat right now. We got Bryan and Rob and Dorkman and Bilky Lurt, it looks like, in Eastside, and got actually a super chat from LB001RW, so let's hit that first. He says, I think inside linebacker is the biggest need nobody's discussing. Dave and I have talked about it, and it certainly could be addressed and wouldn't be a shock if it was. We'll see what the pre-draft visit list looks like, but I just made the counterpoint in my mock draft that Pittsburgh could have turned over its inside linebacker room. They could have traded Patrick Queen to Dallas. They could have cut Malik Harrison. They didn't have to re-sign Cole Holcomb. All those things went the other way, which tells me they like something about that room and may not be eager to make a big splashy addition.
Here's the thing, though, and we talked about this coming out of the combine and all too. It feels like this inside linebacker class, especially how the kind of players in it that are in it, and specifically how the Steelers usually try to utilize those guys. It's such a good class that it feels like you'd be doing a disservice, especially if you have anything more than, let's say, 8 picks in this draft. You'll be doing a disservice by not addressing that position at some point, and probably by the time early in day 3 as well too. So I do think that you got to at least think ahead, maybe not necessarily right away rookie season for a inside linebacker that you might draft. But once again, Queen, there's a very good chance that this is Queen's last season in Pittsburgh. Even though Peyton Wilson has had some flashes, there's still a lot of questions that I think he has to answer overall moving forward. Can he be an every down guy? And then, I mean, let's face it, Cole Holcomb's just a guy, and Malik Harrison's just a guy as well too. So, if you don't address that inside linebacker position at some point, let's say in the first 2 days or early in day 3, what is that? Is that going to start putting you in? Are you going to have to go address that position next year in free agency and then draft a player, or is it good to have maybe a developmental guy in that room coming out of this year's draft? So, I don't think it's DEFCON. What's the highest? DEFCON 1?
I always
5?
get them backwards. I forget if 1 is or 5 is the highest. I think it's 5, but somebody can check me.
Whatever the highest DEFCON is, I for that position group, I don't think it's there, but I think it's enough that awareness needs to be heightened.
All right. There's an analogy I didn't expect to go down that road tonight, but fair.
I mean, I see where he's coming from. And LV, I think people are talking about it. Obviously, maybe most don't think it's maybe the biggest need, per se, obviously, over than potentially guard or wide receiver. But, once again, I think if you're looking, past this year, and there, there's going to be, I think, a couple of kids in this class potentially at the linebacker position that, whether the Steelers draft them or another team draft them, early day 3 guys that potentially that we're talking about for numerous years in this league.
It's a good class, and so there's certainly more incentive than just even what the roster looks like to address the position. And I think regardless of the class and where you rank the need, even if they don't do anything, Patrick Queen must play better. Peyton Wilson must play better. Malik Harrison still has to find a way to carve out a role, maybe as that base guy, but you would like Peyton Wilson in that full-time every down base and nickel role instead of just playing in sub packages, just playing in nickel like he has the first 2 years. So the calculation will either be they need new talent or they believe a front seven-minded DC like Patrick Graham can get the best out of those guys. And if they think the defensive line can improve and keep those guys clean, Queen and Wilson, that'll make them better, which it would. So we'll see which way they go. But I think regardless of whether you draft it or not, that room must play better than it did in 25.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so good question there. Let's go back to John Pennington. He says, hello, Dave and Alex. I have to ask you guys 2 important questions. Do you think last season was a win for the organization, losing another playoff win with Rodgers? My second question is, I'm old enough to remember those first 2 years of Bradshaw, and the organization stuck with him. So the organization gave Howard the same chance they gave Bradshaw. What's the difference except for this win now that's getting the way? Rodgers did not win a playoff or Super Bowl, and I remember Bradshaw first snaps. I'm 69 going on 70 in June. Well, happy early birthday, a couple months away, John. A lot there to unpack. The first question is, do you think last season was a win for the organization, losing another playoff? He says playoff win, but I just assuming not winning another playoff game. I guess John's question is, was last season a success, Dave?
No.
Yeah, I think it's a flat answer. You did not make progress as a franchise. You were in the same place you have been. You've won 9 or 10 games each of the last, 4+ years and have no playoff wins to show for it. So I think Rodgers played well. I'm not mad about the experience, but I don't think it's a success because you didn't move the ball forward.
Right.
I think there's obviously individual things to be happy about, the growth of the offensive line, especially the play Joey Porter Jr., et cetera. But, as a big picture element, no. The second question about giving Howard the same patience as Bradshaw, it's just a different world.
It's a different world. Yeah, I was going to say, we're not only, it'd be maybe one thing if we're talking 10, 15 years ago, but we're talking me when I was a kid. The game has changed so much, and obviously, organizationally, head coach, all that's changed, and it's just a different world now. So, I don't think you can talk about what happened with Bradshaw in his first couple of years and use it as any type of comparison to anything that's going on with the Steelers right now.
And lest we forget, not that I need to tell John this because he watched it live and I certainly did not, but Bradshaw was benched repeatedly throughout his career. Mm-hmm. Even in that 74 season when they first won the Super Bowl, he didn't start the year. He came in midway through. I forget that was a pure benching or injury related or what, but he was in out of the lineup. You had Joe Gilliam, you had Terry Hanratty. They were just rotating quarterbacks until they could find someone that could find some sort of consistency and stability. So even then, it was not just, here's Bradshaw, we're all in. It was pretty dicey for the first several seasons of his career.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the next question, and that is going to come from Bryan Tolini. Be sure to like the stream, subscribe to the channel, check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. He says, better chance we go inside linebacker or safety first. For inside linebacker, would you rather see them go big on day 2 with Anthony Hill Jr. or Jacob Rodriguez, or take a stab on day 3 with someone like Jimmy Rolder or Red Murdoch? Still think safety probably a better chance than off-ball linebacker in terms of, I think a better chance on round 1, even on day 2. In terms of what you would prefer, obviously you want the more talented player, and without all the pieces in place, it's hard to really answer that. So, of course, you would love on paper Rodriguez or Hill versus a later round guy. I do like Red Murdoch, forced a ton of fumbles in Buffalo, just a guy that probably I think will stick in the NFL for a while, but without kind of giving all the other elements of it, it's probably harder to answer that question on the second part, Brian.
I definitely, even though we just talked about the inside linebacker room and all like that, I would be very surprised if that ends up. I would put safety with a lot better chance of being a position drafted in the first round than an inside linebacker would. I think kind of the sweet spot with this inside linebacker class as it relates to the Steelers roster and where it sits right now, it feels like anywhere between the 3rd and 5th round. Feels like so, and I know that's a large span, but you got quite a few picks within that range as well too. So
you have how many 6 picks? But think between the 3rd and 5th round.
So you got 3 in the 3rd, right?
2 in the 4th, and I believe a 5th, and a partridge and a pear tree.
Right. So, now obviously we'll see if they end up dealing any of those to maybe move up in the 2nd or anything like that. But even if you have, let's just say 4 picks in total between, the 3rd and the 5th round, I think with as deep as this class is and the way the roster is made up right now, I think they can find a guy within that range. It does kind of feel like the sweet spot when it comes to that position.
Rob Jones says Omar Cooper Jr. has coach's connection, absolute baller, should be there at 21. Why would you not take him? Dave and I had this conversation to a degree the last couple weeks, but especially on today's podcast. I get it. I wouldn't hate that. I'm a big Omar Cooper fan. I think a lot of draft analysts and draftniks are big fans of his game. The question that I had, and I talked through with Dave today, was, is he a true number 1 receiver, defined as somebody that you design and build your pass game around, that's going to run through him, and that's where things start. And I know DK Metcalf is there, so you don't have to scheme it up exactly that way, but that's how I think about, is a receiver worth taking in the first round? Does he reach that threshold? And I don't know if Cooper quite gets there, despite the many things I like about his game. So that would be my answer to that, but I understand the point that you're making. Cooper looks like a really good prospect.
Yeah, he does, and I can't get out of my head. And Alex and I had the conversation today. If we could guarantee everybody that Cooper comes out of his first 4 years with, what did I say? 275.
It was 68 per year, 950 yards, and like 5.5 touchdowns per year was the average.
All right. If I could guarantee everybody that would be his average per season after the first 4 seasons in the NFL, is that enough to is that enough to take such a player at 21st overall? And I think the short answer to that is yes. But I do struggle with is he a guy that can take over a game that the ball goes through. I struggle with that. Where my mind mostly has been with Omar Cooper as it relates to the Steelers as of late is really, really wondering if the team might be in a situation where if they go, say, offensive line in the first round, and if Omar Cooper slides out of the first round, is that a guy that we're having that conversation after the first round as we wait for round two and all the chatter picks up at who might
Teams
trade
are
up
calling, yes.
yeah, teams are calling about the top spot in the second round. I can't get that, even though it's next to it. Look, it's next to impossible to hit multiple picks in a mock draft anyway, much less predict trades. But I can't help but think that that might be a scenario the Steelers entertain, especially with the fact that they do have so much draft capital in the first 50 picks of this draft.
Yeah, I think it's valid, or trading up for some sort of receiver.
Top 100 picks.
Trading up for some sort of receiver early day 2 is not out of the question if they don't take it at number 21 or in the first round. Dorkman 251, when I do a mock draft, I make better choices when I only do a 3-round mock. How do you avoid saying I'm going to take this guy instead of that guy because I can get this player in the next round? Well, just to show how the sausage is made, when I do my mocks, I don't use a simulator
I don't either.
You don't do mocks.
Right.
But the main reason being because it might create some unrealistic things where guys fall and I end up getting all the good players, and you kind of have those, conundrums. Do I take advantage of the mock, kind of make it unrealistic or not? So I just kind of put guys in place where I think they're realistically being mocked too. I get the benefit though of getting the players that I maybe would like most or think fit most, and so I know there's kind of both sides of this thing, but I don't really have that issue because I don't use a sim for my published mock drafts.
It's a losing proposition that everybody loves to do and will never get away from it when it comes to the mock drafts. I think the best way, and the way I only do now one mock draft a year. I used to do like 4 or 5 of them in off season, but I only do one now, a final one. And before I put that one together, I loosely try to outline almost exactly like we do the Depot draft contest. I try to build a list of say around 50 guys. Might be a little bit longer than that this year because the Steelers technically have 12 picks and we expect them to probably make more than 7 this time around here. So, build yourself out a list of, 50 to say 70 players that, you think the Steelers have interest in. They fit what the organization needs, both positionally and from the player type standpoint. The whole, if you want to get into the height, weight, measurable, advanced analytics aspect of it as well too. But at least give yourself, say, I don't know, 10 players per round to choose from first, and then start trying to put it together that way. Obviously, if you address inside linebacker in the first round, you're obviously not going to turn around and take one in the second or the third, more than likely. Now, wide receiver is a position, obviously, you could see this team double dip at during this draft. I think you could see the team take a guard and a tackle, obviously, in this class. You're probably not going to take 2 safeties in this class. You might, depending on how many picks they have, they might take 2 corners. Are you a believer in this team drafting a quarterback at some point potentially in this draft? So I think a good way to at least attack mocks is have you a loose list of 50 to 70 guys that you think could be Steelers realistically, and then build your mocks out from there.
Yeah, that's a fair way to sum it up. Let's see what is next. John Pennington, do you guys think the inside linebacker room needs to be upgraded from Queen and Wilson? I think you look at the draft and obviously see what's there, and it's a talented class. It just depends on, do you take that? Do you take something else? It's all those variables of what's on the board and what do you have and what do you need come into play. I mean, obviously the room must get better, like Dave and I said earlier, but I'm not giving up on either guy. So I guess if I had to kind of lean one way or the other, I wouldn't make a big swing at inside linebacker, but I understand the case for it.
Yeah, look, it's hard to imagine unless you took someone in the first round or something like that of a guy coming in and actually starting over somebody else. So I think you attack it of looking at trying to upgrade the room specifically at the weakest link. And could that potentially be Malik Harrison? Could it be Cole Holcomb? The thing about Bruner is we've hardly seen him on the field defensively, but he's a hell of a damn special teams player. So there's that aspect of him too. So can this team upgrade maybe specifically over a guy like Holcomb or Malik Harrison? And I think there's a possibility to do that. And I think there's a possibility to do that anywhere between the third and the fifth round, like I had said.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what Pittsburgh's track is. Eastside Legend 1, says, I think the Steelers should trade Freiermuth. He brings nothing as a blocker. I think he would get good trade return. I know there was a report that teams had been calling about Pat Freiermuth, and Pittsburgh was shutting those down. He's certainly not here for his blocking, but I really have no desire to trade him. I think he can offer a lot as a receiver, as a security blanket. I think he can still be utilized more downfield than he has been in select seasons, including 2025. So I think there's still a place for Freiermuth to be an asset in this offense. I think the only concern is there a redundancy between him and Michael Pittman Jr.? I know Mike McCarthy's talking about using Pittman in different ways and vertically more often, but they kind of, at least based on last year, for example, occupy the same area of the field. Underneath, dirty work, move the chains. It's kind of hat on a hat.
I think one of the key things, and McCarthy's kind of hit on this before, and he laid into this a little bit more today. He doesn't want just a Z guy. He doesn't want just an X guy. He doesn't want just a slot guy. It sounds like whatever, at least the first of two wide receivers, if they draft two in this class, is going to be one that they think they can move around in this offense and move around right out of the chute. So that player has obviously had to play more than just a slot in college, it feels like, and potentially one. You go back to Omar Cooper, has played inside and out. And fits the Steelers and a lot of other metrics as well too. So, you don't need duplicates of guys, at least body size and main contribution attributes that you already have. Do you need another big guy like that plays almost exactly like DK Metcalf, I guess is what I'm saying?
There's differing thoughts. You can have,
if you can't, especially if you can't move them around as like you'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, you can have different skill sets and variety, but you can have more of the same and tell teams stop three of these guys instead of stopping just one big guy. So I think you look at talent and see how, as long as guys are flexible, which Pittman's flexible. I think DK's flexible, and maybe a rookie will be too, can still be moved around. So, I still want to see how the distribution of snaps gets laid out between Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth in an offense that should run a lot more 11 personnel and a lot less two tight end looks. And so can you get good value from both those guys, especially if you give Washington a decent extension, probably similar to what Freiermuth got a couple years ago, about $8-9 million per year? That's a question to ponder. But I think you go through this year, you don't make the big change on those guys and kind of see how they fit in the offense. Maybe you evaluate things after 26. Next question, about a half hour left. Got a super chat that just came in from Rafael Urquiza. I might be saying that wrong. I apologize, but really appreciate the super chat. He says, you guys are the best. I would prefer Ioane in round 1, but if he is gone, I would take Cooper. Waiting until round 2 for a receiver is a risk. So thank you again for the super chat. And it is. You don't know who's going to be there. You're picking 53rd. You're not picking early in the second round. You may trade up, as Dave floated and theorized, which I think has a lot of legs and validity to it, but you can't guarantee a trade up either. You got to find a dance partner on that. So there is a risk if you're left holding the bag and 8 receivers are gone by the time you get a chance to pick again.
Yeah, I mean, and realistically, you could have guys like Tyson, Tate, Boston, Lemon, Cooper, Concepcion. Even Bernard could be gone at 53, so Yeah, look at if you do go offensive line first, though, it does feel like it puts a little more pressure to get a wide receiver in the second round, because once you get past, say, these top, what, 10, 12 wide receivers, you know, are you really looking, unless maybe you're looking at a guy like Antonio Williams, potentially, uh, might he still be on the board at 53? I think there's a chance of that. But I mean, who else, could potentially be a future type guy that, once again, after first 4 seasons, is kind of the hub, if you will, or one of the main hubs in your passing game.
Sure, unless you got something big planned like a trade for a veteran receiver, which I'm not many options, but unless you're going to add or sign some sort of vet free agent, I guess Deebo Samuel is still out there, right? So you could go down that road. We'll see what happens to A.J. Brown. Sounds like maybe that's a post-June 1st thing. I doubt Pittsburgh does that, but I guess those are still options to consider.
I mean, they've already gone back-to-back years now trading for wide
Sure.
receivers. What's the odds of them making that 3 years in a row,
Yeah, I understand. So I don't think that's likely. I'm just spitballing other ideas, but there's a risk there in waiting. No question about that, and it's why receiver still has a good chance to be the pick in the first round and potentially 21 overall if the team stays. Next question comes from more of a comment from Mike for 3. He's calling a shot, Dave. He says, Queen gets traded during the draft. That'd be a headline for you. Not the crazy side. You paid out the roster bonus. So you think he'll stay, but if you get a great offer, could this be almost a George Pickens thing where some team blows you away with an offer either right after the draft or in this case during the draft where you just say, we got to take it. We'll draft somebody. We'll figure it out. It's possible. I don't expect that, but there's the shot call, Dave.
Well, I mean, if they ended up doing that, once again, you're going to have to eat the roster bonus, which in the grand scheme of things isn't the worst thing in the world, especially if you got a nice return on him. But I would think that you would want such a thing to happen, probably right before the draft or in the first round of draft, so you know which way to potentially attack that in the draft, right? Because if you trade away Queen at this point, and let's say you don't address the inside linebacker position with, let's say, your first 3 picks in the draft, wherever those picks are, who are you left with starting for this team?
Yeah, I get that, and that's been my concern on why when those trade rumors and buzz around Queen and the Cowboys first arise during the initial stages of free agency, I was like, I don't know, you can't give this guy away for a 4th-round pick. It's just not worth it because what do you have? Either Peyton Wilson, who has not proven himself to be an every down guy, or you're asking a rookie to do that. And Patrick Queen was just on a podcast talking about how demanding the inside linebacker position has been in Pittsburgh, asking those guys to do everything. Maybe that changes under the new coaching staff. Those are new things to explore, but the structure is going to be the same, still the same 3-4 defense. Terminology seems to be about the same too. So we'll see, but there would be no great alternative.
You're obviously not going to get a first-round pick for Queen. I'm willing to bet you're not going to get a second either. So I guess a 3rd-round pick potentially comes into play with that, or
you package him as part of a trade.
Yeah. Could you do something and be that part of the deal to maybe move up in the second and then have your eyes on maybe a guy in the 3rd round at the linebacker position that you think could step right in?
It's rare for that to occur on draft day, but it has happened before with A.J. Brown. Not I guess that wasn't part of a package. That was just a pick for the player. But, in terms of players getting traded on draft day, it's rare, but the NFL has certainly been more trade happy and increasingly so over the years. Younger GMs, just more activity. So it's a thought. We'll see if Mike gets it right.
I would imagine too, on top of it there, if the team did end up trading Patrick Queen, let's say it happened either right before or during the draft, it's going to be something where you would think there had been previous calls about, right? Or do you think that there would legitimately be a situation where a team calls the Steelers right in the middle of first round and says, "Hey, you guys interested in moving Queen?" without any kind of prior talks along the lines of potentially moving Queen?
Yeah, there's probably prior talks. Teams always check in before the draft. They call around the NFL and just see kind of who's maybe thinking about coming up or moving back, kind of getting a lay of the land. Maybe Dallas calls again. I think Pittsburgh has to draft an inside linebacker first before they trade away Patrick Queen. So maybe they draft one in the second round, just hypothetically, and they go trade Queen in a third to move up or something like that. I don't know, but it's hard to draft Queen without that inside linebacker kind of knowing who that replacement would be. That's my thought on it, at least. But we'll see. Ross says, is there any chance Sonny Styles is still around at 21? You never say never, as Mike Tomlin would say, but in a class without many blue chip guys, he's one of them. I very much doubt it.
Yeah, I really would be surprised if that happened.
Got another bold take, Ohio State related, from Hot UJEC 44. Says, bold take, Steelers trade up for Caleb Downs as he slips outside the top 12. In terms of bold takes, I kind of dig that. We'll see where Downs ends up slotting in, but yeah, that's not a bad bold take.
I don't know, when you look at some of these teams in this, let's say the top 10 and what they need, and
safeties don't go early typically.
No, they don't usually go early. So I think in a right situation, and maybe a team trading up to go get a certain other player, is it plausible that he at least falls out of the top 10? I think it's plausible. Yeah. Top 15? I don't know, but look, let's just say this. I wouldn't bet my house or Alex's house, on him being slam dunk, I guess, top 15. But I think it's conceivable that he could fall out of the top 10.
Sure. And if he does, then maybe there'll be some trade calls, maybe from Pittsburgh. Mike Adesso, did anything Omar or Big Mike say today make you feel better about Broderick and less likely they go tackle round one? Omar Khan's comments certainly were more encouraging, as you're seeing on the headline on screen right now, than he said at the NFL Combine. So I don't think tackle's going to be the round one choice. I think guard's going to be the first position they take in this draft, first round or not.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel any better. I'll feel better when he's actually back on the practice field. That's when I'll feel better.
Yeah. I think I missed a couple of questions after the Super Chat. I apologize. Let me go back up. John was asking about how do you rate Omar McCarthy not being on the road together as much this year on the Pro Day circuit. As you said, McCarthy said he's supposed to go to 6, ended up at 1. Not sure what all was happening that prevented him from not going to 5 Pro Days. I know the celebration of life was 1, but I'm not sure what else was happening there. So I think it's a misstep. Maybe there's a valid reason. Apparently there is. But when you're not there and you have less information, you're just worse off. I think it's as simple as that. Not crushing doesn't mean Pittsburgh can't pick good players. Hopefully they do, but you'd rather had been there than not.
I mean, we're not going to be able to judge it until the end results a couple of years in, right?
And even if they pick a bust, it's going to be like, well, if they went to that Pro Day, they would have picked better. You can't. It's hard to go back in time and play it out differently.
I think we've just become incredibly spoiled
about having the same decision makers is so rare.
And it almost being a given that Mike Tomlin and Connor, Mike Tomlin and Omar, Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert show up at 7. I mean, it was very depressing during the COVID time, right? Because obviously weren't hitting the road. But I think our own bias plays into our feelings on it as well too. Other teams probably, quite a few other teams around the league have had success via drafts and probably have not gone near to the amount of pro days that the Steelers have gone to.
Yeah, I'm sure. But some teams do more private workouts, and Pittsburgh has never done those. Could that change this year? Maybe, but I'm not anticipating it. So it's just, you'd rather have been there. Obviously, they, taking McCarthy at his word, intended to go to those pro days for a reason, just didn't happen, and you bring in some guys and take it from there. Which inside linebacker besides Styles would you like to draft? Rodriguez, Allen, Lewis, Hill Jr. I like Jacob Rodriguez a lot. I know the size isn't ideal, but the way this guy plays, hair on fire, ultra productive, can make a guy really, really produce at a high level. Just kind of that instinctual guy. I think Rodriguez is my guy.
Yeah, I think so too. Always around the ball. Feels like a alpha guy, a guy that you could build your defense around.
And I know there were some questions about his overall athleticism pre-combine, but tested well, I should say, had a really good combine workout, which I think soothed some of those concerns. Nathan Butler, 7843, says, for Dave, I'm sure you've explained cash spending and cap many times before in the past, which I have missed. When you mention cash spending, where does that money come from, and is there a limit to it?
All right. Cash obviously comes from the team. The source of the cash is the team. And is there a limit to how much cash a team can spend in a year? No, there's not. But having to construct your salary cap around that does make it somewhat incredibly tough, especially if you don't get creative with the cap portion of it. But as far as cash spending goes, let's say let's take a guy like Joey Porter Jr. This offseason. Right now, Joey Porter, for at least the time being, has a cash amount due to him this year of $3,924,000. So nearly $4 million is the cash charge on Joey Porter Jr. right now, and all of that is his base salary, because the prorated portion of his contract is just that. It's prorated. It's cash that's already been spent on his rookie deal that is being prorated due to that's the way you handle signing bonuses, is you prorate them. So knowing right now that Joey Porter Jr. has a cash charge on him of nearly $4 million, let's say this team signs Joey Porter Jr. to an extension this offseason. And let's just, for the sake of argument, say that Joey Porter Jr.'s signing bonus as part of this deal is $20 million. And let's say they, as part of it, they lower his base salary down to the minimum for a guy with his experience, which I think would put him, what is it? 1.145. It's either 1.145 million or 1.215 million. Let's just go for the sake of argument, calling it just one. Let's call it 1.3 million. They take him down to 1.3 million, slightly more than minimum, just for round numbers there. All right. So his base salary goes down to 1.3 million, but you're giving him a $20 million signing bonus, even though that signing bonus will be prorated likely over 5 years, and part of those 5 years includes this year, at, let's say, that would be a $4 million additional cap charge on him as part of the proration, because 4 times 5 equals 20 there. But you're still giving him that $20 million signing bonus. And technically, that's considered cash spending that goes into this year. So what you've gone from is Joey Porter Jr. having a cash charge of nearly $4 million to, once again, you taking his base salary and lowering it down, but you're giving him a 1.3 base salary and a $20 million signing bonus. His cash spending for this year is $21.3 million. So when you talk about cash and cap are different, and how they're accounted for. But you just account for cash in the sheer fact that you try to think of, you try to at least predict, and it's obviously hard to do. It's a little bit easier to do with the Steelers because they usually stay within structure during the 3-year period in the CBA. That you just try to project out how much cash the Steelers plan on spending on this team in 2026. And I think maybe a safe number to work with is actually what the cap number is this year. And obviously, you use that as a starting point. So the cap number this year is actually, for the league, for teams, is 301.2 million. And teams need to spend, it says in the CBA that teams over the 3-year designated periods in the CBA, that teams need to spend at least 90% of the 3-year cap total in cash dollars there. So, once again, it gets complicated from there on out. But let's just say that the Steelers are planning on spending $302 million in cash. Well, then you have a cash charge for each of the players. And we just talked about one in particular, like Joey Porter Jr., who could potentially have a $21.3 million cash number. Well, $21.3 million is a pretty high cash number. And then you tack it on to guys, let's say, like TJ Watt's got a $32 million cash charge this year. DK Metcalf's got a $25 million cash charge this year. So already your top two players are at $57 million in a cash charge, and then you throw in Joey Porter Jr. at $21.3 million. You can see where you start eating up a lot of your cash right there. Now, these bigger organizations, the Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, they're a lot of teams are willing to throw whatever cash they need to in certain years to try to essentially buy a championship. But the Steelers are a lot more structured, where it's hard to imagine them getting in the neighborhood of where they're spending, say, 130% of the league's cap number in one single year, if that makes any sense. So cash dollars and cap dollars are different, but there is no limit on how much cash an owner can spend on a team in a single season.
Let me follow up that very informative and smart comment with a very dumb, lowbrow question. Is this all just like sitting in a bank account? Like the NFL funnels the revenue money out just in a bank account, then Art Rooney just sends it out to the players?
I imagine it has to be escrowed to some degree. You can't write checks that your body can't cash.
Sure.
I don't know the particulars of how that is done. I think you do see the Steelers taking on more minority owners, though, because of the fact that they want a stronger cash flow.
Yeah, and the Acrisure Stadium naming rights was a big infusion of cash there, because you're right, from a cap standpoint, that signing bonus gets prorated out, but that cash gets paid out. Now, it's generally not, I shouldn't say generally, but it's often not all paid at once on those big signing bonuses. There's installments that can be done over time, and agreements and things like that. So you don't necessarily get a $20 million check or deposit all at once, but you're still paying that usually within the first year of that contract. Usually sooner.
Generally, but it all depends on the language in the contract. Sometimes that money is paid over, I don't know, I've seen 18 months and stuff like that. And I've seen even some instances where even some of these rookie contracts, like first round draft picks, the payment, the tech, even though it goes in the books as a cash spending for the year, I think most of it is paid in the current year overall. Now, as far as how the accounting actually goes, and how the league actually tabulates, if let's say you gave a guy like Joey Porter $20 million, but let's say the payment of that is over 18 months, is the technical the amount of months that are actually in the league year, and the payments from there actually calculated as cash for the actual year that the signing bonus was given, or does it run concurrent with how the actual payment schedule is? I mean,
let's not a lot of that road.
I mean, that's a lot of how the sausage is made that I don't know how the sausage is made when it comes to that.
Those are for lawyers and CPAs and things that are a little above our pay grade. But there's
it would be a great question for someone like Joel Corey. Just add that to the list of other things that we asked Joel Corey about the next time, because he would be able to answer that, at least how the league accounts for it in cash spending. Say a signing bonus is paid in installments that run longer than the actual league year.
Yeah. All right. $5 super chat from Papa Trucka, who says, just saying hi, dropping off a load right outside of Pittsburgh in Imperial, PA. Love each podcast and every podcast. Yins keep me sane. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Papa Trucker, for the super chat, but more importantly, the very kind comments. And we're happy to be an outlet to especially truckers like yourself.
What does he haul? Do we even know what he hauls? Does he haul various stuff?
Let us
Papa
know.
Trucker, what do you haul?
Yeah, let us know what you got going on here in the last 10 minutes or so of today's live stream. Next question, I got a couple comments from Mike and from John about my live mock draft. Yeah, I keep putting it off, but I think April's a good month to do the mock draft, because that's when it really feels like, okay, the draft is near and the buzz really begins to pick up once that calendar ticks from that 3 to 4 from March to April. So I'll do it eventually. I'm not sure the format. I haven't heard anything from the Walk the Mock people. I'll probably just do something solo. We'll figure it out, though. We'll certainly do something and let you guys know.
Man, I'm almost would be up for paying 31 other representatives of teams from $10 to partake in a, because man, you've gotten screwed in a couple. Was it last year or the year before that
There was some
there's
trolls.
always one guy, right?
Maybe we should do that. Maybe we'll do a sign up and have guys from the site and yourself, Dave, maybe some chatters too if they want to come. I don't know. I haven't even looked at it for a second, but maybe we'll do something more formal like that. A lot more fun. All right. Let's see what else we got. We got a comment here. Listen to the Terrible Podcast. 8 years and first time here from Marcol6236. So thank you so much, man. Right. Appreciate you listening for a long time. Thank you for being here tonight. Hopefully you're enjoying the show. We do this every other Monday. Next question comes from John, who says no one talks about receiver A.T. Perry, the team signed. So you have you guys taken a good look at what he could bring to the table, or is he flying under the radar? Wrote about him.
You just did a futures breakdown on him, didn't you?
I did. He's trivia question of the first signing under Mike McCarthy, even though it probably was made more by front office staff already put into place. But he had a good rookie year at Wake Forest with the Saints, and then has never been able to kind of capture that and carry that since. So he'll compete. We'll see. They'll obviously add some receivers, so he'll be pretty buried on the depth chart. But there's some NFL talent and pedigree and size, so he'll get his chance in camp.
Yep.
Another super chat from LV00001RW, $5. Thank you so much. Says, with a new offensive line coach, how much of an adjustment will it be to the established players? Didn't previous coach teach a unique technique? Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment. I have to kind of learn about how James Campen teaches things, but Meyer was a little more unique in terms of those aggressive on-body, off-body pass sets, and so I think those veterans, those guys who played in that system will have to unlearn that, so there will be an adjustment, but I'm sure that's true of any new coach coming in. It just may be more obvious for the offensive line than it is for the outside linebackers coach or whoever, but each coach will have his own way of doing things and way he runs practice, so it'll be an adjustment for all those guys, but certainly it's a good point about the offensive line.
I'm real excited to see Campen and who's the former player, the assistant?
Jari Evans.
Yeah, Jari Evans. Interested to see how that pans out with this coaching the offensive line this year. I really still consider Campen as one of the more notable and likable hires this offseason.
Papa Trucker with an update from him. He says, I hauled containers off the train and deliver them locally in Pittsburgh, Western Virginia, and Ohio. So maybe he meant West Virginia or Western Virginia. I'm not sure which. But either way, thank you so much for doing that important work that no one ever talks about. But you talk about making the trains run on time, make all of our lives easier. Those long-haul truckers are so valuable. So really appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat and listening to the podcast. All right, about 10 minutes left. Mike Adesso, Antonio Williams is my favorite day two receiver, and it's not close. Do you guys like him? I didn't write the report on him, my famous phrase to say, but I like him a lot from what I've kind of seen, just watching him enough and watching Clemson games this year. I think there's some talent there. Is he my favorite guy? I don't know exactly where I'd rank him, but I do like Williams quite a bit.
Yeah, I think when you get into that, definitely that second tier of wide receivers, I think he's definitely has potential. Looking at his some of the metrics on him, I think we talked a little bit about this, is against man yards per route run with him specifically 2.61. There was quite a difference between his zone yards per route run versus his man. He was a lot more had a much higher yards per route run number against man coverage than he did against zone. Now his yards after catch per reception was strong at 5.3. Looks like his average depth of target was a little lower, little on the low side at 8.5, but I don't think Clemson did a lot of pushing the football down the field overall, did they, last couple of years?
I know Klubnik struggled more than expected this year, so I don't know exactly what the offense looked like in terms of average depth of target, but when the offense struggles, typically those numbers tend to shrink.
What was his drop percentage as well, too? Just a 4%. Last year, I think he had 11 drops in total, according to Pro Football Focus. So, yeah, I think definitely when you get into that second tier of wide receivers, starting at potentially 53rd overall with the Steelers pick, I think he could be in play depending on how the board breaks or what they do in the first round.
Our friend Jason is back. He says, hello, Daleks, the combination of you and myself, Dave. Penn State guard Vega Ioane is at the top of my wish list. Y'all think the Steelers should trade up for him, or he's still on the board around 17-18 #planet theory? The old quote about guys, only so many guys that are so big, that are so athletic that you go out there and get. It's
I don't know if I trade up for him, but once again, he to me is the best pure guard in this class. Overall, I like the physicality. I like him on the hoof. I think he could be a guy, a 10-year starter in the league, be a potential All-Pro, be a Pro Bowler, obviously. I think he's that kind of player, and you end up saying that. You say, well, if you think he can be all that, why wouldn't you potentially trade up for him? And it's just so hard to trade up for guards, isn't it?
I mean, it's not hard in the sense of can you do it, but how often does it happen?
Right.
And is that the right play for a position of quote unquote lesser value? Though I think many offensive line coaches and O-line aficionados would disagree with a lesser tag on any offensive lineman. But I get the overall point. I mean, it depends, and I hate saying this because it's such a cliche. I give the same boring, mealy mouth answer each time, but it just depends. It depends on what does the board look like. What teams are picking at 20 and 19 that might take a guard? Are there teams trying to come up that you're hearing about that might take this guy instead? They traded up for Broderick Jones because they had a sense the Jets were going to take Broderick Jones, and so they wanted to get ahead of New York. They didn't trade up for Fautanu because either they couldn't get a deal worked out, or they felt like he was going to fall to them. So when you have more picks, you have more flexibility, you can be more aggressive. We expect trade-ups in this year's draft. When and what that looks like, we don't know. I doubt they would, but it just depends on what does your board look like, who are you competing with, is some team going to steal them from you? All those things matter. Mm-hmm. So could they do it? Yes, they could. Am I expecting that? No, but right. I don't go into the draft with a lot of expectations about trades because you just don't know until you're really in the moment, and draft day is always full of surprises.
Yeah, I still think in my head the most likely chance we see the first Steelers trade in this draft would be to trade up in the second round.
All right. Let's see. I heard Marcus Mosher and Matt Williamson discuss McCarthy like smaller, more athletic linemen that can move over maulers, a la Hoffman. Maybe we should keep that in mind for the draft. Yeah, I think they've run some zone blocking stuff. I think in Green Bay, maybe we'll take a look at Dallas's in Green Bay's kind of background, but they've taken some bigger, I think small. I think Hoffman's a pretty aggressive run blocker, and I go back to who was it? Tyler Smith from Tulsa. He was a decent athlete, but a pretty aggressive guy in the run game. They took him. Now that's maybe more Jerry and Stephen Jones than Mike McCarthy. So we'll have to go back and look at some of that stuff. But I think you're going to see a guard either way, probably on day 2.
Hoffman, I think I've measured in his pro day at 6'3.5", 302 pounds. He looks bigger than that on tape, though. At least a 302.
Yeah, I'm sure he's added weight. He was also undrafted, so a little different situation than an early round draft pick. But yeah, I think back to, TJ Lang and Treader and those guys in Green Bay. They were a little more undersized. Corey Lindsley. I think, is it Lindsay or Lindsley? I think it's Lindsley. Anyway, I get the overall thought there, Mike. Does the team start early because of the new coaching staff and head coach? Yeah, they start phase 1 of the offseason. What is it, April 6th, April 7th, one of those 2 dates. So it's not, you're not running full practices, but they will get a head start because of the new head coach.
Yeah, I think it's next week, right?
6th or 7th. And I'm not doing the meme. I'm just forget which date it is. I'm not doing 6, 7 something.
Right.
Sure, it's in the chat.
Because let's see, Easter comes up. What day is Easter on? It's
Sunday.
Next Sunday.
Easter Sunday.
And that would be the 5th. So probably on the 6th then.
Yeah, that would make sense on the timeline. But next week, regardless of which day it is. What is Ramsey's role this year? Doesn't have the speed for deep safety nor the quickness for nickel corner. I just don't know where he plays. I think he can play. You typically play a free safety because you don't have maybe the elite speed, and it kind of hides some of the speed sometimes rather than playing corner. I think it could be what it was, or at least intended to be in 25. You're going to play nickel and sub and free safety and base. It's kind of the assumption I'll work with.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you draft safety in round 2, then in maybe dime packages he gets on the field, or in any sub package really he might get on the field with Ramsey going to roll down and play nickel. All right, what else do we got? Just a couple minutes left. What is allowed on a pre-draft visit? Are they able to have private workouts, thinking specifically for people that might have forgone testing at the combine in their pro day? I don't believe there's any athletic endeavors on a pre-draft visit. That is more taking a tour, meeting coaches, getting on the whiteboard, maybe watching film, often some medical checks, especially for guys who are not at the NFL Combine. There are private workouts, but those are usually held separately and not part of a visit, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't think at least in most designated pre-draft visits, those guys aren't hitting the field or anything. And they usually bring them in groups of 2, 3, or 4, and it's just more of the get to know process. And as Alex said, maybe if they have a medical issue that they need checked out, maybe they get that accomplished during there. But it's more just what it says, a visit, and it's more of a get to know scenario. So I can't ever remember a guy coming in on a quote unquote pre-draft visit and doing a workout or anything like that.
Same. Last one we'll take is another super chat from Papa Trucka, $2. Thank you so much, man. He says, would Giants compare KC Concepcion to Zay Flowers? Let's see who Ross comped him to in his scouting report. He had Lad, or some will say Ladidi McConkey.
I don't like getting into the player comps.
No, why are you not a comp guy?
I just like to grade them. Because especially if a guy doesn't get drafted by the Steelers, I tend to flush that part of my brain as far as the pre-draft, highlights and areas of Excel and all like that. I don't usually store a lot of that in my head as far as for future comparisons.
I think they're fun. I think they're just good to give a good, quick approximation to a more casual fan of what this guy is like in terms of his style. Comps are not, he's going to be this. It's often, to me, based on body type, based on athleticism, based on how they win, and based on a rough belief of their career outcome. I'm not going to compare a first-round pick to an undrafted guy or vice versa, but it's not meant to be like, this is exactly how I expect his career to go. That's the second McConkey comparison, because I compared Omar Cooper Jr. to Lad McConkey, so that's interesting there. One guy who might get Zay Flower comps that I almost made the comp up, but I didn't love him enough to get there, is Deion Burks from Oklahoma. Kind of the same body type and ways that they win. Flowers and Burks. I ultimately compared Burks to Trey Tucker, but that might be a guy to comp Burks and Flowers.
I was just watching a little bit more KC Concepcion the other night there, and one thing that really stuck out to me as far as a plus with him is catching the ball way outside of his frame.
His hands are good, right? He drops them, but his hands can make it catch.
Yeah, over his head, especially on those high balls, man. He can. I think you see numerous occasions of where him plucking those balls out, especially up over his head, out of the air.
Yeah, it's very Deontay-like, where he can make some tough grabs, some really impressive catches, but also frustrate you with some drops, and that's the part he has to clean up, because the drop rate metrically is really poor.
What was his hand size?
It's a good question. Apparently Mike McCarthy talking about hand sizes today with quarterbacks. Got an article on that coming out a little after midnight today. 9-something? 9.3/8?
It has to be 9 something. It has to be more than 9.5, right?
It's probably 9 something.
Let's see. Let me look at our combine page here.
Yeah, you can pull it up here.
9.25.
Okay, 9.25. So relative to his frame, it's probably average.
Yeah. That's one of the things that really caught me when going through the tape this last time with him, was the ability to catch the ball outside the frame. But he did have, I think he's got concentration drops. I think he's got to do a better job of keeping his hands together when balls are thrown right at him.
Mm-hmm. Mike Adesso making the Deontay Johnson comp as well. He says, and I mean that in a good way. And Vegas says someone needs to make a new stat, crash out probability percentage, which could be useful for Pittsburgh. And Mike also asking about Avion Terrell, who re-injured his hammy during his private workout today.
Sad to hear.
Yeah. Will Stock fall? It's not going to be helped, obviously, and he hasn't been able to test throughout this process. So with a couple other corners, yeah, he may fall a little bit. That certainly seems possible. He's not the biggest guy. He's got the hammy. not great for your pre-draft process.
Yeah, he's probably going to find himself in the third round talk somewhere with some teams, I think.
I don't know if it'll be that. I think early day 2, maybe for Terrell, but
Okay.
We'll see. All right, we're going to wrap things up. Appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for all the great questions. And Dave, as always, thank you for being here to help answer them.
All right. Thank you for moderating the way you do every week. Thank you for the lot of familiar names, a couple of new names in here. Always appreciate that. Anybody that can make these and stop by every other Monday is much appreciated. And as I always say, peace and love, everybody. Be careful.
And there'll be an archive version of this on the site throughout this entire live stream. The Pirates have not scored a single run. What's the score of the Pens game? Do we have a score
I've
of
got
the Pens
the
game?
I don't, but I've got the Pirates are down 2-0.
Mhm.
And let me see if I can get to the
got a
NHL
last second.
scoreboard real quick.
Pens
0-0 starting the second.
All right, so Pens and Pirates both looking for that first goal or run. All right, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Again, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.